So this is the Jojoplata. My name's Joe Z, and yeah, I'm very humble about my moves, so I'm naming it the Jojoplata, you know? So, I guess a lot of you guys are thinking, that's kind of a weird flex, but okay. Yeah, no, so I developed this move. I'm gonna kind of talk through how exactly I came up with this move and what happened. I guess it's been about a year and a half now since I developed it, and I think I showed you guys at the end of last year, right? Or at the very beginning. It's like the first week of January, so yeah, probably been a while, probably been about 7 months, but I've been working on a couple of new entries and a couple of new actually submissions from this position, but let's talk about the basic position and how it came about. So the first thing, we were working on a couple different things. I don't know if you guys remember, but we were working on Jojoplata, not Jojoplata. We worked on the Jojoplata a little bit later, but it's very, very similar to the same type of grips as that, right? So you know, I was kind of thinking about it when this happened, and I was rolling with Nick, and he did a couple things, and we ended up into this position. And I was thinking of one specific move, right? So there's a catch wrestling move. Go ahead and go up down to the side, just side control. I'm going to show that catch wrestling hip block. So again, this is a hip block. This is attacking this joint. Sometimes you can feel it in your knee. There's a lot of different ways that you can do this. I've seen it in Sambo also, and it's a little bit different because it's either gi or no gi. This works really well, or the Jojoplata works really well, both gi and no gi, right? So just the basic one that I saw, we're kind of doing, you know, we call this kind of like leg lace, coming across, holding onto the hip right here, right? Coming over and kind of going for like a wrestler's cradle, right? It's already pretty tight right here, right? And all I'm doing is using the leverage off of here and pulling his leg up, right? So it's like, kind of like trying to make him hacky sack, you know, further than he can actually hacky sack, right? There's a couple really important things here. The reason why I'm showing you guys this is because there's a couple key components here and the reason why the Jojoplata works. So the first thing is it's really important that their knee is pointing towards their body, right? If his knee's out, you can't really flare because I'm just extending the way that his leg wants to go, right? So in this position, it's a little bit easy because my stomach or my chest is already going over his knee, right? So it's very, very easy. I don't have to worry about the direction that his knee is pointing. But we'll get to that here in a second for the Jojoplata. I've also seen this Sambo, and in Sambo it's a little bit different. Sometimes they come through the cup of the foot right here, and they grab the pants, right? So IBJJF, perfectly legal to grab inside of the pants. And this is a little bit different. This is almost like a reverse toe hold, which is really a heel hook, right? So a little bit different, but you have really good security here. You can come across, or you can do a cross face, grabbing the lapel here, right? So same type of thing. I'm pushing my chest into his knee. Again, the positioning of the knee is super important. Driving in and lifting up. Just got to. So yeah, so it doesn't really matter which way you do it. It's attacking a little bit different components depending on which way you do it, but they're both very, very good, right? The original way, or this like kind of like catch wrestling style, sometimes it is kind of difficult to get to, or to hold and maintain good pressure from here. It's a really good big man skill. But yeah, again, it's very important that the knee is facing down. Also, you notice when I do this, the foot is kind of closer than a 45-degree angle. If the foot is here at 90 degrees, this is actually perfect to do the lock, to do the hip lock, right? Like a wrench or whatever, perfectly 90 degrees, right? But it kind of sucks because somebody's leg has a lot of power to be able to extend out when it's that far out. But the closer you get the heel to the butt, the more difficult it is for them to actually extend out. So, you know, there's pros and cons to both, but in actuality, I'm really trying to torque the knee this way, or torque the leg this way at a perfect 90 degrees, right? So that's how this was developed. There's a bunch of other different types of hip locks, primarily in catch and Sambo. I guess I'll show you guys real quick, but if he's playing like an open guard, sometimes he'll have his legs up like this. I've seen Eric also do this where he comes across here and grabs kind of like a Kimura grip. Again, this is just like a Kimura for the hip, right? And as he starts to drive down, he's using his body and driving across. Yep. So if you don't get the tap there, I've actually seen it where he passes the leg across. Sorry. So it gets very tight very quickly, right? So yeah, So there's a couple different variations. There's also different variations when the person's belly down, right? Don't worry about that. I think it's called the SFT, but there's a bunch of like really cool ones that you can do. I've been searching around online, scouring the internet, trying to figure out if anybody's ever done this before, and as far as I can tell, nobody's ever done this before. So the closest thing I found out recently is there's actually a Sambo knot with a very similar finish. So if I've got like Ashi position, right, if I was into single leg crossover, this is kind of similar to the position that we're going to be going into. So if you get into like a leg knot, like a Sambo knot or Russian knot, right, coming across here, crossing this type of position, I've always seen just to go for the heel hook, right? And I don't know why you go for the hip lock from here if you have the heel exposed like this, right? But you can, and this is the closest thing to the Jojoplata I've ever seen before, you can potentially climb up the arm here, and you're going for the head, and once you go for the head, it's a spinal lock, hip lock, and knee at the same time. So again, just pulling here, yeah, it's already super tight from here. I can barely even grab his head. But yeah, so it's, again, it's getting in the hacky sack, the direction that he doesn't want to go. Again, the reason why this works so well is his knee is pointing in. See how his leg is perfectly 90 degrees right here? It's not a big deal because he's not going to move my body. If he tries to extend this leg out, very difficult. I can just extend my legs back and still get that perfect 90 degrees. So this works very well. All right, let's get into the position. So how I developed this, again, I was running with Nick, and I just figured it out one day. So I was going into an Ashigrami position, just like single leg X, right? So typically how I do that is I go shin to shin, and we're kind of just like sitting in this like loose 50-50 position, right? And I've done this to him over and over again, where I just come here. It's kind of similar to like the standing entry into Ashi, right? So from here, you can go for like outside heel hook or whatever, cross the leg over, whatever you're going to do to play from here, right? But he was wise to that, because again, over and over again. So instead of being able to get my shin here, he is blocking really well by hiding his shin here. So I wasn't able to get to a shin to shin position, right? And so this is kind of like the first step in getting into the Jojoplata, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take, right now I'm facing towards him, and this is very important too, so I'm parallel to him still, right? What I'm going to do is after I hook behind his hip here, I'm going to put my arm through, and I'm going to scoot as close to him as possible, right? From here, it's pretty easy to just lift your leg over, right? So the positioning of this heel is very important. Not right now, but for the finish. So let's talk about that here in a second. Also, I can potentially grab my lapel here, which is good control over this leg, but for the finish, it's not going to happen because I'm actually using this hand very deep and using my wrist on my leg. And what's happening here is I'm pushing back. So I'm pushing back off of my own leg, right? And do you see how his knee is pointing that way? That's bad. So I actually want it pointing inwards, right? And one of the ways I can get it pointing inwards, again, is that pushing motion from my arm, right? So if I'm pushing up against my leg, I can push his knee inwards. The closer my butt is to him, the easier it is for me to get the knee pointed that way, towards his body, right? So again, then turning here, going through, getting as close to him as possible, crossing my leg over, and getting as deep of a bite as I can. So now, as I'm setting up, now I'm perpendicular, right? So now we're at this perfect cross position. Now I can start to set up, right? So how this came about, again, is he was defending really well. I was trying to go for like a calf slicer or something like that, and in order to do that, you really need your legs crossed, and you really need to have his heel close to his butt, right? But it wasn't happening. He was defending really well. I think he's maybe even pushing my heel a little bit or something, pushing off. And so it was very easy it is very easy without your heels crossed to be able to scoot towards your opponent, right? So for the finish of this, it's super important to be completely parallel, facing the same direction as your opponent, right? So again, knee towards and facing the same direction, as close to the same direction as your opponent. This works really well, both gi and no gi. It's a little bit different. No gi, I don't have any material to grab onto. With gi, it's very easy. I like gi because I can just grab the lapels. I'm really shooting for the cross-side lapel. to be able to get my arm over his head in that same kind of like wrestler's cradle position, right? So again, from here, another important thing is see how his leg is up high? In order to finish, I actually want to cross ankle to ankle because this is where I'm actually getting my pull from. The lower my arm is, the better also, but I'm really not pulling off my arm. Again, my arm is really for control and which direction the knee is pointing, right? So from here, also, I'm tucking my foot underneath his hip. This is because if this foot isn't here, and it's just like this, if I start to twist towards my opponent, he's just gonna follow, right? There's nothing stopping him. So I'm using this as a wedge into the ground and kicking up. I'm kicking up that way. So I'm stopping him from being able to move. As I start to move this way, as I'm starting to move this way, again, as you can see, it's already starting to get tight, but I'm stopping him from moving with me, right? So his knee now is facing inwards and he's being stopped right there. Now I can start to go for the head, right? So however I need to, grabbing the lapel material is really, really easy and good for this, but I'm scooting back and I'm trying to scoot back as close hip to hip as I can. Sorry, it's already starting to get pretty tight. My arm low, because again, high, it's good for positional control, but the lower, the better. It's not gonna be super low around the ankle, because again, I'm getting a pull from the ankle. And then I'm gonna grab for the opposite side lapel. If I can, I'm gonna grab material on his back, right? It's already pretty tight right here, so I'm not gonna go, I'll normally go deep on their back. It really doesn't matter how flexible somebody is, you should be able to finish them, right? And it's just a matter of how far behind their back you're getting. Again, that's more for positional control, not actually for the sub, because for the sub, what I'm doing is I'm pulling back here, pulling his ankle, again, ankle to ankle, pulling his ankle back to his head, kind of in this like wide arc, right? So I'm kind of doing like a Van Halen kick, right? So I'm kicking up like this and pulling back here, right? So, you know, you guys ever hear the song Jump? Is it Before You're Done? Yeah, you know what that song's about? You guys know? It's about killing yourself. So he's gonna wanna kill himself when you get into this position. If you're in the position to be able to do that move, then they're just gonna wanna go ahead and die. So I'm coming across their head as far as possible. It's already very, very tight. Yeah. And so I'm kicking out and pulling back. Again, I'm making him hacky sack where he can't go any further, is what I'm doing. So again, I'm pushing it against my knee as deep as possible and pushing back, right? So this is not the sub. I'm really pulling the ankle with my own ankle. Again, if my ankle is high or if it's just floating, I can't actually pull ankle to ankle. So let's start that from the beginning again. And this is a surprisingly common position. Like to get into this, especially if people are playing legs, super, super common. I don't know why we end up landing in this position so often, but I think that people are typically defending well against the saddle, right? They don't want to get into the saddle position, so they know better. They know where to put their legs to not get saddled. And it doesn't look like much of a position, right? But we can turn it into something. Again, I originally did want single leg X or like Ashigarami with the outside heel hook, because that was like my number one priority. So this is kind of like a lower level priority, right? But it is here. So I'm coming in, he's already tucking, I can't get chin to chin. I'm coming as close to him as possible, kicking my leg over, which is really easy. The closer my hips are to his hips, getting a deep lock, and then posting back, right? Did that just pop? So again, it's a wedge. It's a wedge up against the ground here, right? So cupping the backside of his hip so he can't go over my leg, and now I can start to get into position. Don't try to get the lock until you're actually facing the same direction as your opponent, right? So from here, I'm turning. See as I'm turning to his knee starting to go in, right? And also, again, the lower the arm is, the better for this torsion for the knee to be facing that direction. Again, the knee is in that perfect 50 or 90 degree angle, but it's not possible if you aren't in this position, because normally you'd just be able to extend the leg out, right? So again, if you need to, if they're very, very strong, you can potentially push their leg closer or their heel closer to their butt, and then they won't be able to extend out, right? So again, if he is defending, he could potentially flare his knee out that way, right? And then if I'm pulling, I'm just extending his leg out like it should be going, right? That's not what we want.
So again, from here, I'm just scooting, scooting, scooting. If I need to, I can grab his arm. I can start to pull, 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 grabbing the lapel. I really want the cross-side lapel, and then this is how it's easy for me to get the same direction parallel as my opponent, right? And then from here, make sure that my ankle is crossing the ankle, and then I kick up and pull back, right? So grab any type of lapel material. You can even get it from right here. Any type of lapel material on the back, and then kick up, right? So again, you can already see how tight this is right here. But yeah, let's give it a try. Again, this is the Jojoplata.